Hello and welcome to Eramis Soccer, joined by Caleb Lamb for the third edition of following the USA through the 2024 Copa America. And sadly, Caleb, it will be the final edition of covering the USA through Copa America.
A much shorter tournament run podcast for this Copa America than I think most USA fans were expecting when the groups were announced.
Yeah, and damage obviously done not so much in this game, but by the Panama game, because rather than the ceremonial game with both teams qualified, we're here where Panama are playing Bolivia in the other game. USA have to match Panama's result. Panama are a big favorite to beat Bolivia, so that turns it into the daunting task of beating tournament contender Uruguay. To clarify for the listeners, head-to-head was not the tiebreaker. So goal differential was in the USA's favor. So a matching of the result would likely end in the USA qualifying. But provided Panama would beat Bolivia, this is a very, very difficult task in front of us.
And you always had that small whisper of doubt in your ear going, you know what? Panama's shown that they're pretty good and Bolivia has shown that they are pretty bad. This could be a 4-0, 5-0 game that the USA might have to keep pace with.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going off the performance against the USA, there was a big, big difference between Panama and Bolivia. So when we picked the team, we got Tim Weir suspended. There's no real change per se because Musa, McKennie, Adams, Adams has been working in and out the team, so he comes in to start here. But for me, he's played enough that it doesn't feel like a new player coming into the lineup. It just feels like Reyna sliding out to the wing, and then a fairly familiar Musa, McKennie, Adams midfield trio. It's very athletic. It's very strong physically. A 10 maybe missing. So probably Reyna coming in off the wing a la Foden for England is in order here. I don't dislike the lineup. What are your thoughts?
It wasn't unexpected. I thought, not having Weah meant that, well, your options are, do you want to put in a Pepe maybe centrally and try to move Balogun out wide? But I didn't really think that would end up happening just because of how strong he had ended up playing. So when I looked through, the way they kind of approached it, yes, it's still their traditional 4-3-3, but the fact that now you've got Pulisic on one side, Reyna on the other, it really kind of felt like a 4-5-1 setup for the USA with a lot of good passing options, players that have very good chemistry in the midfield to pull some strings. And I was kind of excited to see how that was going to look because it felt like Balogun had played strong enough up top that I was okay if he would have been more isolated, and just expected we'd see a lot more distribution coming his way when this team was announced.
Yeah. And against the hopes of every USA fan, Uruguay unchanged from their opening two victories. Star of the show coming in is Liverpool star Darwin Núñez. 10 goals in 7 games. You got Champions League winner Valverde in centre mid, another notable star. You got Barcelona centre back Ronald Araujo. Apologies if I butchered that name. It's just a very, very strong team here that USA is facing. It's got big guns on the bench. It's got top level experience all over. Older guys, lots of caps. They're a tournament contender. There's no getting around it.
For me, when I looked at how they were set up, Stu, I was a little bit unsure of what we were going to see out of Uruguay. Obviously, they hadn't fully guaranteed themselves the knockout stages. So there's, maybe some of that doubt in the back of their mind. Hey, if we come out here too defensive and lay an egg against the U.S. and they put 3 past us, and Panama go and score 5 against Bolivia, Uruguay's the surprise knockout. So they needed to play for something. I just wasn't sure if that was meant that they were going to really pack it in defensively and try to hold the U.S. to a low-scoring game, or if they'd go the opposite direction and say, our strength is with our offense right now. Let's try to score a whole bunch of goals and just keep the U.S. hemmed in their own end. So there was a lot of question marks surrounding how they'd approach this one.
Yeah. And the first 10 minutes, I really enjoyed it. It was high energy, high intensity. There was no major chances, but I didn't translate that as a lack of quality on the ball. Two strong defensive teams working very, very hard. 12th minute, Balogun forces a corner. Pulisic crosses half cleared. Robinson heads right at the goalkeeper. A minute later, Robinson fights Dela Cruz. The ball falls to Adams. He drives. He plays in Reina. His cross is intercepted by the goalkeeper, Richer. We have another play where Balogun, he spins round Oliveira and Arejo's forced to cover. First 15 minutes, and it's funny because Fox had made a big deal about how strong Uruguay start. They were outscoring opponents 3-0 in the opening 20 minutes. They were outshooting opponents. I think it was 20-1 in the opening 20 minutes.
Yes.
First 15 minutes here, I've got the USA down as the better team. What did you think?
I did too, and I had seen that stat come up. It was something I'd sort of looked at from those first two games as well, just how quick out of the blocks they were against Panama in that first group stage game where Panama looked shell-shocked to be there, and then against Bolivia, just how comfortable and dominant they looked, hitting their stride and sort of settling in as a team to very much be worried about in the Copa America. So as the U.S. side, the worst case scenario is you come out and just get battered for the first quarter of an hour, and instead they took it to them. That good move through the midfield with Adams picking out the run of Reina on the left side. Oh, did that look like such a good move? I don't know if you've got Weah and Pulisic as the wingers there, if that doesn't lead to a shot instead of a cross. I think playing in Reina pretty much guarantees he's trying to pick out Balogun in there, but that was very good goalkeeping to be confident enough to come off the line and dive to smother.
I see what you're saying, but I liked Reina out there. This is the first time I've watched, I think, a full game of Reina on the wing, and he reminded me of Beckham. You don't have the pace, you don't have the dynamic in behind. You do have, the crossing ability. You do have the ability to switch play. You do have the, ability to release attacks from your own half with long passes. I liked a lot about it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, don't disagree with how his passing brings a really good extra element. It just seemed with like what we'd seen those first two group stage games where the U.S. would play those good diagonal balls to split a center back and a fullback. Just led to shots, not always goals, but that's where a lot of the chances seem to come for them in the first couple games. And I think maybe just muscle memory of seeing that and going, no, there's not going to be a curled effort to the back post here. This is going to be Reina playing a good cross in. And I thought it was a decent ball. Like I said, just a slightly different way of doing it when you've got Balogun as maybe the only real shooting threat at the top of that formation.
Yeah. Another option, and I'm not saying you would bench Weah unless it's a disciplinary issue because of the punch or whatever, because he played very well in the first game. But I feel like Reina is a 10. He has been getting dealt with, at least in this tournament. You can man mark somebody, you can double someone. It's easier to get cover when someone's playing 10. It's a lot harder to pay that kind of attention to somebody when they're out the wing. He has the option to wait until Adams has occupied the 6 and come in. It seemed easier for him to make an impact out wide than it has been central in this tournament.
I think it definitely gave him more time when he did get the ball. He wasn't instantly under pressure. So for a guy like that who can hit a pass, as you pointed out, having that extra second or two to sort of sight your target, be able to get your foot around the ball, made him a little bit more dangerous to set things up, certainly.
Yeah. First yellow card in the 16th minute. So Tyler Adams for a foul on Oliveira. I think it's a bad decision. This will be the least of our worries by the time this game ends as far as ref decisions go. What do you think? Was it a yellow?
No. Although watching it in real time, I thought, that's clumsy. Yeah, I could see that being a yellow card. But of course, we've got that benefit of being able to slow it down. And clearly you see he's the one who takes the studs. So it's tough in those situations, right? I think we talked a little bit about it last time with this is modern football. It doesn't really matter how late the challenge is or that you win the ball. It's all about, are you dangerous in showing those studs and playing in a reckless manner? And with that being the standard today, I think it makes sense that that's a yellow card. And a little bit surprised that there wasn't an alert to say, all right, let's pull him back to the monitor to see if maybe he just missed it and needs to reverse his decision, give the yellow card the other way.
Yeah, fair. Now, Uruguay, for me, again, I'm surprised I'm saying this, but I really believe it. Second best in the run of play so far, but we have an example as to why the game remains scoreless. The ball goes into the feet of Balogun. Arrejao is tight, he's energetic, he's harassing Balogun. There's a lot of contact without fouling. He turns the attack away. And two observations. To me, you're never truly a good team unless you can be second best in the run of play without conceding consistently. And two, this is the kind of clip you show young defenders, because simply the energy level that this man is playing with is over and above the average player. And it's a very undervalued aspect of player development. There's almost, to me, an element of teaching information when it comes to defending, but we don't understand the level of intensity and passion that you can defend with. I've got Arrejao down as man of the match. And I think I think most teams in this tournament, in this exact scenario, at some point in the first half concede here, but not Uruguay. They are intense. They are pressing. I don't buy the narrative that it's just because they're dirty. I think it's quality defending. And we saw this with Leeds under Bielsa too. It's a pattern and it's trained.
I don't disagree with that, especially with how they kind of approached closing down players on the ball. Like I said, there was almost always, as within a split second of a U.S. midfielder or forward, in Balogun's case, getting that ball, having someone blocking off what would be the most obvious shooting angle. So now they've got to go to their secondary. Do I open up my body? Do I try to curl this around there? That thought process of slowing things down, so it's not an instantaneous turn and hit, now gives time for your players that are either side of the ball to come in and be that option to help on the backside or put pressure, take away the passing option. And just seeing how many times it was almost like just putting cattle into a chute. Just, all right, you can do what you want to do, but as soon as you look like you're going to be a threat to goal, we're going to make you go to your second, third, fourth best option to try and keep this attack going. And I thought the U.S. did a good job of not forcing it. There wasn't anything horrendously bad in the decision-making, but so often it was, all right, we'll go back or go wide and keep possession, but now that scoring threat is gone for the moment. Yeah. They were all right to keep recycling possession, but it just felt in a game like this where you needed that goal, I would have liked to see them maybe, especially with Balogun in those situations, being a little bit more selfish. Try to get that early advantage to really get your team fired up and plant that seed of doubt in Uruguay's mind.
Yeah. Now, personal observation, I think the whole soccer culture thing is massively overplayed and over-criticized. But there is one difference I see in the USA. To me, if there is an equivalent to this Uruguay team in the NFL, prime Baltimore Ravens defense, they're celebrated. If there is a college basketball equivalent who's up in people's face, pressing 1v1 defenders almost like a rash, it's beloved. Soccer, it is massively, massively undervalued, borderline disrespected, and they're cheats. They don't play the right way. It's not helping to plant these seeds because it's a vulnerable mindset to not value defending.
For sure. I mean, you talk about all the negativity surrounding, parking the bus. Yeah, ultra defending 10 men behind the ball is boring, but it also means that you have to have an effective strategy and execute it properly. This was far from parking the bus. This was just, hey, we are going to have a commitment to being in the right place defensively at every single time and not get it wrong. And how many matches in your life, Stu, have you watched where a team executes defensively for the majority of the game, has one slip that leads to a goal, and all that effort is forgotten? Oh, they're a leaky ship at the back. They don't have their defense in order, which is very unfair, as you said, because there's not going to be that look at the stats of tackles won and things like that. It's still very much focused on how good an offense executes rather than the vice versa.
And Caleb, he's a massively misunderstood part of parking the bus. And for some perspective, when I was coaching my first pro team, we had 9 shutouts in 10 games. And I've had success defensively, and I think a lot of teams don't understand. To park the bus, it's not necessarily a stand and be on the back foot mindset. You just choose where and when you're going to get up in people's face. There's no lack of aggression in a defensive stance if you do it properly. If you in your mind are parking the bus and that means you're passive defensively, it means you're a bad player. To me, are we 70 yards away from our goal when we start getting in your face? Or do we wait till you cross the halfway line and then jump on you with the exact same intensity? So even the phrase parking the bus suggests there is less effort defensively. The truly good teams, there's no lack of effort anywhere. They're just picking and choosing where to put that on. But defending should always be like this player from Ray Howard should always be intense, should always be up in people's face. And if you lower your energy levels and you don't attack with energy, it's just a case of where you pay for it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're shirking your duties, or if you're, not completely on that game, like you said, there's always that possibility that you're inviting the opposing team too much into your half. And if you have a slip, or you don't have someone slide to pick up the attacker when they need to, in a little bit of a way, that's an easier chance to develop for an offense that's going direct to goal. So, I mean, the coaching tendencies have a lot to do with it. And as we've talked about, there's a lot of praise for Bielsa with how he coached the team, and him not being a part of this match shows how well that he's drilled his team, that they're going to play that way without necessarily having him on the sideline trying to berate and manage that. He's got this team well drilled.
23rd minute, we have the only negative of the evening so far, and it didn't happen in Kansas City. It happens in Florida because Panama have scored. Fajardo, who scored the winner, very impressive player. Again, another high-energy player, Jamie Vardy type for me. He scored, so he's put the winner in past the USA. He's given them a lead now. He's becoming a hero of the tournament for them, huh?
Yeah, and this was one I didn't watch the Panama game that closely. I tried to double box it and have it available to keep an eye on, but just seeing that score pop up goes, there it is. That's that seed of doubt planted in your mind that, oh yeah, it's not just good enough that the USA has started this game pretty well. They haven't scored yet, and they're behind the 8 ball to Panama.
Yeah, and it does shift the dynamic because you're the better team. You're not playing in a way that's overly aggressive. You're just being tight defensively and you're hitting them on the break. But and that's good enough till Panama score. So it's definitely a dynamic shifter. Sub in the 27th minute, the physical nature of this game is showing through. Maxera, how the forward, not to be confused with the centre-back from Barcelona, Ronald. He's down for a long time. He looks like he runs into his own player, and it's an ugly landing with the top of his head hitting the turf. Stretch it off in a neck brace. Ugly scenes. Sad shame. We've got Oliveira in as a sub, plays for LAFC in the MLS. And, it's interesting because MLS has an interesting marketing dilemma here. Because if I'm the MLS, I keep getting told my league sucks, and I keep getting told there's no good players. There's plenty of MLS players in the last 8 and the final 4 of the Copa America, they just don't play for the USA. So do you push that, or do you keep it quiet because the negative reaction's coming? Because there's more MLS players on Uruguay than the USA here.
That's right. And I think this has sort of been a little bit of a dilemma for Major League Soccer for almost a decade now. There's sort of that disrespect that's now starting to eke away. We're seeing more of these young players in their prime transferring over, particularly goalkeepers going over to the Premier League. That seems to be the pipeline, is pick up a really good MLS keeper, like we've seen with Turner and Georgi Petrovic. I'm forgetting the young American who came out of Texas, but just you've got now
Hannah Tessman.
What's that, sir?
Oh no, you're saying goalkeeper. So I was like,
yes. The young 20-year-old who's going to be a part of the Olympic squad. But also, there's always been Latin American and South American talent that have made the MLS a good league for those types of players from its inception. So, some of those players I think have been overlooked a little bit in terms of finding that move across to European clubs. But there's no doubt about it that MLS has helped really develop some good players that have helped out the Copa America squads for the last 20 plus years.
I don't know if he was even before MLS, but Carlos Valderrama.
He was a part of it more towards the end of his career rather than being sort of brought along and developed by it. But there's so many when you go down through the lists of just the MLS giving them a place to maybe earn a little bit more money than they would back playing in a South American league outside of Brazil potentially, and have seen them turn into dynamic on the ball players. I think a little bit that's why US fans who have an MLS club that they support watch, they're used to seeing so much of this direct one-on-one take a man on the dribble type of play, which they don't necessarily see as much of when they perhaps have a Premier League club that they follow.
Yeah. Lovely bit of play here, Caleb. Robinson, who for me has been fantastic this tournament. He intercepts a pass. He plays in Reina. Reina plays a really sharp one-touch pass in from the wing central to McKennie. McKennie plays in Balogun. It would be a penalty. They're 2 yards offside. For me, the very discussion of it being a penalty is null and void because the reason Araujo is in the position he's in, having to reach around and make the foul, is because he's offside. But the build-up, it's phenomenal to me. Like, it's a lovely bit of play.
It's good build-up play, but like you said, I gave more credit to the defensive line of Uruguay there, that when you're that close to your box that you can set a straight line and not overreact to a run in behind. Because this wasn't a close decision. Balogun was more than a yard offside. This was one of those ones where you don't even necessarily need to go look at the replay angle. Everyone can see that one pretty clearly with their eyes. But again, another chance that goes begging.
Yeah. Now I'm going to say something here, just an observation. And these are the fine margins in life and in top end sports. Had the USA beaten Panama, Uruguay and USA are on 6 points each. They're both qualified. This exact performance is universally praised. It's against Uruguay. It's a very good team. It is excellent. To me, this is the best level of opposition in the tournament. To me, this is a Final 8, Final 4 World Cup level team. Uruguay, to me, is the same level of Argentina, Brazil, Colombia. It depends on the day who wins. And sure, we've got half hour here where USA may even be outplaying them. That Panama slip is so costly. The entire narrative could have been so different.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's where it's really the gut punch, right? Is you look at it as we've got these first 2 games, go and handle your business. Then you can sort of play the Uruguay game without any fear of reprisal or getting knocked out of the at the group stage level. And instead, now you're in a dogfight where you not only have to play well, you have to get a result, and a good one at that.
Yeah. Reina plays in Pulisic 1v1. He gets stuffed by Ronald Araujo. Max is off the field now, so let's just say Araujo going forward. This, again, to me, is Reina's strength. We've had that one-touch pass from the wing central. This is 15, 20 yards inside his own half, and he's found Pulisic for a counter-attack with precision, like pinpoint. So he's not the athlete but he is a very, very different proposition. He's a very, very good player. There was real shades of Beckham, and I was a big Beckham fan. And this is what they say the USA don't do, right? Like, oh, it's all about athleticism. To me, at this level, Reina's not a great athlete to me, but he's a very effective, very gifted passer of the ball who's making a footprint on this game.
Yeah, and maybe there's become a little bit of that over-reliance on you have to be super fast or super physical. One of my favorite players of all time was Charlie Adam, who was the very opposite of speed, but you give him more than half a second on the ball, he'll pick out a wonderful ball that's going to start a scoring chance, or he'll bomb one from 65 yards over Thibaut Courtois. You never knew which one it was going to be. So I like seeing players like Reina be able to execute on a high level, and it's also good to see that he got into this team and didn't seem to have any repercussions from the mess after the World Cup.
Yeah, that's gone away, which is the best thing that could have possibly happened, right? It's the only way this could have been a success. This is by the side note, I will looking forward to these biographies in 10, 15 years covering this incident when we really get the truth. But nonetheless, 33rd minute, the most discussed incident of the game without a shadow of a doubt. It's a referee error. Starts with a clumsy foul by Richards. He gets a yellow card. Now, to me, the disingenuous part of this narrative is they're saying, oh, he gets the yellow card out and he plays advantage at the same time. That's obviously not the case because Darwin Núñez puts his hand on the ball to take the free kick. So if it was an advantage, it would have been a handball on Núñez. So can we stop that nonsense? What the error is here, he has got the yellow card out, and there has to be what they call, I believe, an orchestrated restart after a
ceremonial restart. Ceremonial restart is at least how the US SF Referee Federation refers to it as.
Yeah, so he hasn't played advantage. Núñez puts his hand on the ball. Again, if it's advantage, that's handball. It's a quick free kick that they shouldn't have been allowed to take. Another issue is the ball's probably 2 or 3 yards in front of the foul, which in the final third is actually a pretty big deal. And it should have came back. So please stop saying he played advantage. He didn't play a team advantage, but it is a massive referee error that frankly could have been a lot worse because Nandez could have scored this. He goes through off the quick free kick. He chips it over, and is it Ream that clears it?
It is.
It's a good play by Ream, which sort of lessens it a little bit because if this makes the score 1-0 Uruguay, as bad as this narrative is, it would have been a lot worse. It is a refereeing error. Personal opinion, people need to stop with the corruption card. Corruption is financial. The last thing you're going to do is eliminate deliberately the massively revenue generating, massive media coverage grabbing home nation to send Panama through because they make more money. Please stop it. That's nonsense. That didn't happen. That is insane. But it is a horrendous refereeing error. Thoughts?
And it's an error. It's a little bit of incompetence, but it's also really just a lack of confidence that causes this problem. The issue with the quick free kick, and this is where, as a certified referee, Stu, I feel like I get to say a little bit of my piece.
Fire away, brother.
Yeah, you've got to have the confidence of you've made the decision to give the yellow card. Now, you can allow a quick restart and give the yellow card later on, or allow play to continue there. But the issue is he takes it out of his pocket. He's clearly decided he's going to give it then. As soon as it's out and it's visible, there's an expectation that players know, all right, the play is stopped. We're now going to see the presentation of this card, and there will be a ceremonial free kick. I didn't have as much of an issue with the place of the ball. The rules allow for it to be within 2 yards of the foul. Is the okay? It's a little bit pushed forward, but not any more egregious really than some other ones we've seen. But he's clearly panicked a little bit. He's gone, oh, they're already playing. And as a referee who's taking control of the game, you have to be confident enough to blow your whistle sharply, bring them back. You know immediately when you do that, you're going to see 10 pairs of hands go like this and remonstrate with you and go, no, we're in. You've just ruined our scoring chance. And then you have to just say, nope, the card's out. I'm presenting this, and to pull it back. And so that's sort of where maybe there's been that disconnect in this tournament and across maybe all levels of soccer. Simultaneously, we want perfect refereeing decisions, while at the same time, especially in the Premier League, we don't like referees who have too much of an attitude, or referees who seem to have an air about them of importance, which I think is just confidence. And but really, that Kalina. Is what you need. Say that again.
But we loved Kalina.
Yep, we do. There's been so many, though, Premier League referees who've been derided for the last decade or so that I've seen as American watching across from here, that it's surprising. So this is the issue. You either demand that they take more responsibility for the game, they stick by their decisions, or if you're going to complain constantly about mistakes or little errors here and there, this is what you're going to see, is the self-doubt, the lack of confidence, and the sort of letting players take a little bit of advantage to sort of dictate how things are going to go.
Yeah, and the fans make that worse because there's no standards when it comes to behavior around a referee. You know, you can act like a spoiled brat, you can be a baby, you can be an idiot, and like just you're always forgiven because you're the player and the ref has less social credence. It's nonsense. Like rugby is centuries ahead of soccer in terms of respect to officials and conduct around referees. And if the argument is soccer players are somehow tougher than rugby players, LOL. That's a hilarious concept, and it's not true.
And the only thing I compare it to, Stu, very quickly, is we only see this kind of bad behavior with Major League Baseball umpiring, and the is always an issue of fans and managers and players being overly upset on balls and strikes calls. That becomes the issue. But that's an umpire who's literally 2 yards away from where the ball is on a static placement. You know, there's no real box there. He's making a judgment call, but that's a lot easier than being 10, 15 yards away and having to get a call right every time in a three-dimensional space.
So then we got Adams starting a counter-attack. He plays in Balogun one touch. He's stopped by Araujo clattering into him. The ability of the USA to counter in transition here, Caleb, it's top level. It is World Cup knockout round level to cause problems on the break to an elite level opponent. It's a good opponent. They don't break them down. But to me, if this is a structured effort to be tight at the back and to hit them on the break, I know you're not allowed to praise Berhalter, but it's magnificently executed. We have a sub in the 41st minute, and it's a shame because it's Balogun who has to withdraw. It looks like the collision with Araujo has caught up with him. He's played well, but the rough out style has got to him in the end.
Yeah, he never looked comfortable after that collision, did he? And it sort of became very apparent that they couldn't waste time to get to halftime and see if he could recover. You couldn't sacrifice those last 7-8 minutes. So they get Pepe ready and bring him on and sort of hope that he can now plug that gap. But as we've talked about on our other 2 episodes about this tournament, Stu, there has been a little bit of a difference between Balogun and Ricardo Pepi leading the line.
I mean, quick diversion on Balogun. I'm a Middlesbrough fan and watched him 3 years ago, and I think it was 4 goals in 20 games. He just wasn't this level. And rather than say, oh, you couldn't see it, I could see it and all this, how about we acknowledge, because it's important for young players to know, people get better. People develop. People over years and months and years go better. And we've got this culture of being able to see a player and everyone has to be right all the time. And we don't acknowledge development curves where, yeah, maybe now you're not where you need to be, but that doesn't mean you can't get there. And this is a man who I think embodies that, and good for him.
I certainly agree with that as someone who supports Blackpool, seeing some of the players who have come along over the last, decade plus, that you see them and you go, I don't really know if they're going to make it at that big club, just because the way they don't necessarily perform in the Championship or League One, unfortunately, which has been too many years. But then you see, hey, they got some confidence from that. They get a little bit more time to develop their skills, and then suddenly, they take off and become a regular starter at their old club. So it's just about having that confidence in young players that if you give them time to develop, they'll figure it out. They'll be all right. Balogun has taken some massive strides forward, and I think this tournament will have done his confidence a world of good.
Yeah. Now we have another referee incident. Richard's clearance into a Uruguay hand. Pulisic is away down the flank and it's brought back with no advantage. The ref, he's wrong. It's becoming an issue. But to me, this is just an opportunity. You need to show a different kind of strength because it's easy to make throwaway comments like win the World Cup, like be top level, like be consistent. This will happen again. There will be frustration again. There will be bad reffing again. There will be opponents that try to get under your skin again, unless you don't really want to fire towards the top level. The question to me right now is, do you fold every time? Does it get under your skin every time? Do you get rattled every time? This is a step this USA team needs to make after watching this tournament. Or I don't know when it'll come, but it will come. And it's not enough to just go cry, oh, CONCACAF, oh, this always happens. At what point do you deal with it? I'm forgetting the exact year, but I'm pretty sure I remember a USA team getting a point for Italy, 9v10. Like at some point, you're not a passenger to your emotions. And if there is a weak point of this group, to me, it's that. It's that if it's about talent and if it's about style and if everything goes their way, there's no questioning them. But as soon as there is a wrench thrown in the works, there is a bad ref, there is an opponent like Panama, they can't handle. I mean, the provocation for Weah's red card was nothing. Nothing, and the head's gone. This game is a chance to sharpen that sword on the stone, and for me, it's not done. I think they emotionally fold under the weight of the referee errors.
And that game that you brought up, 2006 World Cup group stage, Italy versus USA, is where a lot of some of the criticism about the current U.S. men's national team comes from. Of, you know, you remember that incident, Brian McBride getting absolutely elbowed in the face, half of his face covered in just pouring blood. He's not screaming at the official for a red card. He calmly walks off the field, gets his head bandaged, and gets right back on with it. It was sort of that physicality while being stoic that so many U.S. national team fans took pride in. That this is how our team plays. We're physical. We're not going to whine. We're just going to go out and try to get the job done. So seeing this is where, for me, Pulisic starts to lose it with the referee. He's maybe been unhappy about some of the calls, but he's the USA captain, so he's the one who's going to talk to the official. This one here, where what do players talk about all the time they want from a referee? Consistency. All right, you illegally allowed Uruguay to very quickly go on with an attack, and yet here, where there's a clear advantage opportunity, you pull it back. And this is the referee being self-conscious about his earlier error, trying to get a little bit more of a hold on the game. He wants to, you know, use his whistle and demonstrate that he's in charge, but it does nothing more than infuriate the USA players more. And we see a lot more of Pulisic's remonstrations with the referee in the second half.
But you're really onto something here because you get all the USA players on this guy. You get 60 to 80,000 fans on this guy. And you put that kind of pressure on him, but you want emotional consistency. You're actually paying a price for your own behavior and you don't even realize it. Right. Because he does get rattled, he does get shocked, he does get nervous, just like the players are rattled. But when the refs don't have brains, refs don't have emotions, right? And he's the reason I just don't buy the referee nonsense. The ref's out to get us. We had this for decades. The referee's out to get us. The ref's a cheat. We cried about it, and we cried about it, and we cried about it. So we got robots in, VAR. What do we do, Caleb?
Everyone hates
We cry
VAR.
about the robots. So all you've done is you went from crying about humans to crying about robots. Maybe the issue that everyone just cries about everything all the time is a significant part of the problem.
Yeah. And if I hear another British accent go, game's gone, I'll lose it. Just with how many complaints there's been about, the game's so slow now and stuff. Do you want it to be right or do you not want it to be right? Because if mistakes and errors are part of the game, part of the romanticism about football, then you're going to have errors. And sometimes, believe it or not, they will cost your team. But you're going to have to be okay with that. If you don't like that, then you should be the biggest fan in the world of more technology being involved. It started with the goal line system. It's now gone to what I like with the Euros, the semi-automated offside, I think has been very quick and very clear cut. And I don't think there's any doubt we're going to see more of that being used. But of course, you've got to be willing to shell out the cash for that technology, which I don't necessarily think that the Copa America tournament was willing to do.
Well, here's what I think needs to happen. If you want to do away with VR, that's fine, but there has to be some universal of acknowledgement that we're just never going to be happy. It's a cultural obsession with being a crybaby. And the argument is usually, well, this is top-level sports. Well, rugby's top-level sports, and I don't know whether or not you watch rugby, but you could watch the Rugby World Cup. You don't see this. You don't. And then there's the macho thing. Well, the men, rah. That's what they always say when they talk about women's soccer. It's not more macho than rugby. It is a culturally accepted crybaby culture that soccer has. I love soccer, but this element of it is boring. I'm over it. And if you replace VAR with something else, here's what will happen. Everyone will cry about the something else. We need to address how this is getting approached. Anyway, lively exchange in the 43rd minute. There's a Uruguay cross. It finds Palistri. He volleys wide. For me, it's a very smart play from Turner because he volleys it into the advertising boards and Turner instantly, and this is why I think the counters were trained. He gets the ball, he starts the counter just in half a second. Pepe and Pulisic, little bit of interplay. Pulisic skips past Oliveira. His cross goes right to Richer. But to me, the instantaneous nature of Turner grabbing that ball off the boards suggests to me that this is rehearsed and discussed pre-game to constantly hit him on the break. And they did it really well.
Thank you, Tim Howard, for your 2010 World Cup quick restart against Algeria that led to Landon Donovan's iconic goal, because every USA goalkeeper since that moment has been phenomenal about quick restarts and hitting the quick counter. Now, sometimes it doesn't always work out. I think when we saw Ethan Horvath having to come in an emergency basis, there were a couple of bad giveaways and stuff in that game against Panama. But I like that the USA is willing to do that. Don't let the other team reset or get back in formation, while they're still bent over going, it was so close. Oh no, the ball's going the other way and we're out of position. And that is one of the things the USA does so well.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned Algeria, and this is the last rant I'll go on, but fans have got so negative nowadays that I believe if Donovan scores that goal yesterday, the general Twitter reaction is, it's only Algeria. We should have won 4-0. There's not an appreciation of the iconic moment. Like, we had a legendary moment from Bellingham, or it's only Slovakia. It doesn't count. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, Beckham's free kick, which is universally acknowledged as one of the greatest goals in history. We were losing to Greece while we were scrapping to get into the tournament at all. And I don't know, we've got a bit obsessed with narrative and negativity nowadays. But anyway, so am I now. So we're going to go on. Turner bats away across. Nunes picks up the ball and goes forward, and good Lord, he looks dynamic. Interesting on Nunes, because this is the first Uruguay game I've watched, but all I was reading was he'd be good if he could finish. He'd be good if he could finish. Well, he's got 10 goals in 7 games. I wish I couldn't finish. But he's been shackled well. It's the first time he's even done anything noticeable in this game. So the USA have A, counted well, and B, done a phenomenal job. And it's not unfair to say with 10 goals in 7 games, this might be the form forward in world football right now. And he's barely touched the ball. And you might see that frustration when he gets a yellow for hammering Scally in front of the Uruguay bench. One final chance. USA go forward. There's a nice little Pepe knockdown, and Reina, he hits a volleyed pass wide to a surging Robinson. The cross is headed clear by the tremendous, I think, Orejo in this game. And it's half-time. It is a excellent performance from the USA in Kansas City. And the only negative you could pick, aside from the ref, is the game in Florida.
Yeah, unfortunately so, that you're just looking at, we're still in it, right? They haven't conceded. They're playing all right. They're creating some chances. At this point, I was fundamentally feeling I'd like to see more attempts. You're getting into the dangerous areas, test the keeper, try to see if you can't sneak home that first one that I felt like was really going to change the dynamic of the game even more. And you'd see Uruguay settle in and go, all right, we're 1-0 down. We can't allow a whole bunch more, so we're going to pack it in, and the USA would be all right. But as you said, there's also some concern for me because, all right, we've seen one injury on each side here. You're going to have Pepe up top. Again, you've already know that you're missing Weah, who adds a little bit more dynamic in there. Can one of these midfielders finish off a chance? Can we see Captain America, Christian Pulisic, rise to the occasion and put one in the back of the net was one of my thoughts at halftime.
Fair enough. I mean, obviously, I'm going to throw this to you as a USA fan. Obviously, the second half shapes the narrative. But this half in isolation, this 45-minute window in time, is good against elite opposition. If Berhalter does keep his job, and I'm not saying he should or he shouldn't, not my business on this podcast, is the fact that this can be reached reason to show faith that with 2 more years, it can be reached again or higher? And we realize that the Weah red card is a freak incident and it's shaped the entire tournament?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think I have a different viewpoint than a lot of maybe more casual U.S. men's team fan or folks who are more focused on results, which this is ultimately a results-oriented business. But even going back to the 2022 World Cup, I haven't seen anything from the U.S. men's national team that makes me feel like this squad is regressing mightily. They're good enough on their day to be able to give a game to any team in the world. I'm okay with that. Are they at a level now where they're going to be the favorites? No. Do I expect them to have gotten to that level by now? Also, no. I would have liked to have seen them go through into this tournament just because I wanted to see them play against some better teams. But every now and again, as happens in every tournament, you're going to lose to a game to a team that you should have beat. If you couple that with and say, all right, the Bolivia one was a little bit disappointing. You didn't finish off more chances. The Panama game is just a narrative driven thing of, well, you got yourself into a hole and you weren't able to get out of it because that game went screwy very early on. And then you've got this Uruguay game. You didn't get a goal, which we'll talk about more in the second half, but you still played pretty well against one of the top teams in world football right now. I'm not at a point where I'm going, oh, alarm bells are ringing for me with this squad. It's just more disappointing that the results went the way they were, but I wasn't, furious with the way the U.S. approached this tournament or even the quality of the soccer that they played most of the time.
Yeah, I'm going to say something here that I know is going to be unpopular. We got the Berhalter second half move, 1-1. Tell them the score, right?
Yeah.
This is why I think it happened. Now, the only mistake he makes is he does it defending a set play. And there is all kinds of unwritten rules defending set plays. You don't make subs. Some people don't move. Some people don't sit down or stand up. So the timing's horrendous. But if Panama was 0-0 and USA was 0-0, I believe they would have played the exact same system in the second half. And USA is the better team slightly in this game. I believe because of the anxiety to get a goal because Panama's ahead now, the second half, I think the fullbacks were higher. I think the fullbacks were a bit more reckless. I think the midfielders went forward in 2v3s instead of 1v2s, which doesn't sound a big difference, but it can be 10 to 15 yards worth of difference in terms of space you allow on the counter. The gaps between the USA lines get bigger because these are the things that happen when you're pushing for a goal. And I think they're trying and they're pushing, like you say, they're not really threatening. It's like boxing. You get over aggressive, you get picked off on the counter. So I think the flow of the first 20 minutes of the second half, as much as USA were trying to attack more, I think they were more vulnerable, and I think it was looking like they were going to lose. So I think the whole 1-1 thing was to, hey, man, let's go back to how we were playing in the first half because it's working better. I think there was adjustments made in this locker room. It could have been telling Robinson, I always guessing, people forget, but we're only always guessing. Could have been Robinson parking higher, Rayner coming in as a second 10 as a result because Adams isn't really a 10. Could have been Robinson and Scally going forward at the same time. Could have been Musa holding on his own while McKennie and Adams push on. Could have been don't worry as much about the shape on the counter, get more bodies forward, get more bodies into the box. There's a very fast Uruguay team on the break, by the way. I think there are half-time adjustments made to become more aggressive. And when Bolivia scored, he tried to take them away because they actually didn't work as intended.
That's a fair thought. I don't think I agree that I wanted the USA to play more subdued. At no point did I ever think, even when it was 1-1, that the game was going to finish as a draw. I had too much faith in Panama's ability. And also, you don't want to leave it up to the other team doing something to control your destiny. The USA came into this game knowing with 100% certainty that they would have to score a goal, at least one goal, at some point, and it was probably going to be more. So you're going to have to play an attacking brand of soccer. Now, maybe if it's, say, the 85th minute and it's 1-1, sure. But anything up until that point, you have to score a goal. If you don't score a goal, all this work is wasted.
Here's the irony, Caleb. This second half, bombing these bodies forward, they look more likely to score in the first half.
They did. And that's,
And
that's something that happens, right? When you overcommit, you overextend, you get away from what builds an effective attack in soccer. I don't need to tell you this. You're so much more masterful when it comes to this as a coach at a high level than I am. But I always find it interesting when I watch or when I'm coaching high school soccer that the more you throw more bodies up top or take away defenders, it all has to start with your midfield. You have to be able to get yourself in possession into the attacking third and then be able to move the ball around from there. When you try to skip the midfield or you launch long balls into your center forwards, you don't have enough bodies up there to control the attack. You're hoping for an individual moment of brilliance. And there's a couple of players on this US squad who are capable of that. But I would think that would come more from Pulisic or Reyna or McKennie being able to beat somebody off the dribble and create that chance. I wasn't expecting one of the forwards to pull a Robson Halkanu and do a Cruyff turn that leaves 3 Belgian defenders for dead and slot it home. You were going to have to continue to build. But as the panic set in, they got away from what was effective for them, which happens so frequently in almost every game when a team's chasing.
I think a subtle but gigantic difference is there is, I believe, a misconception that the more bodies you send forward, the more dangerous you are.
It's true.
As soon as those bodies are marked, it don't matter, man. Nope. Send 5 bodies forward if you want, but if they're all marked, whatever. But if you're in your own half and teams are coming onto you, and then like was happening in the first half, Reyna's playing one-touch balls and Pulisic is running from deep and the USA attackers are got a head of steam and they come in full speed. That's not easy to mark at all. That's much harder to play against than someone parking on you as if they're in the paint in basketball and just, we got bodies forward, we're more dangerous now. Yeah, not necessarily, USA was dangerous when the ball was moving at pace and when the bodies were coming from behind the ball at pace. And I didn't really feel it in the second half. But on to the second half. First attack is the USA, so that's good. McKennie smashing a shot over the bar. And then here, to me, is the difference. Uruguay go end-to-end, knife through butter, almost effortlessly for me. We win a corner when Tyler Adams crowds out Vina. Second half, by the way, Tyler Adams did a magnificent job tracking runs between the seams, between the centre-backs and full-backs multiple times. Second ball comes in, Vina heads it wide. Pepe's playing target man, bit of good interplay with him and Reyna. Robinson gets crowded out by a backtracking Palestri, and already we're 5 minutes in, and the game is more open, more basketball-like, if you will. Nandez, the right back, drives forward. There's definitely more room in that middle third. The through ball's a little bit overhit. This, to me, gets much more entertaining to watch on TV, but much worse in terms of the USA ending up on the right side of this. Because if you're just going to go toe for toe, punch for punch, attack for attack, this is not a good equation, I think, against this Uruguay team. We got to play where Scally's injured enough for Shaq Moore to get all his warm-up gear off and warm up to come on, but then he's healthy enough that Shaq Moore has to sit right back down again. That's a little bit awkward. And there's the MLS's chances for their first minutes on the USA team gone. Palestri comes forward. You can already tell just from describing the game how much easier it is for Uruguay now. He's nudged out for Robinson. It's an entertaining first 15 minutes. All it makes me think, Caleb, is Uruguay are going to win the game. Side note, Robinson, is he the best US player of the tournament? What's your thoughts?
Oh, well, first, let me address the feeling of how that half was going. I was caught a little bit off guard going, oh, okay, Uruguay is comfortable enough to go, our best form of defense is to have the ball down at their end of the pitch, because that's how we're the most dangerous, even with how good their defense has been. They didn't just pack it in. So that's a lot of credit to that squad and how well coached they are to stick to their game plan and their style of play, knowing that they're committing bodies forward themselves. If they give up a goal and a couple of goals, that things could still go against them and knock them out. But there was no indication that they had fear of that in that second half. As for player of the tournament for me, I was very impressed with Robinson. Still, for me, my money is on Weston McKennie being the best all-around performer for the U.S. I was just so impressed with him time and time again. It was how much effort he expended, even in the dying embers of this game that we'll get to later, of just constantly being able to get on the ball, interrupt attacks, take things the other way, and make things dangerous. Just goes to show the quality of what he brings to the field, and makes it even more incredulous to me that Juventus somehow don't want that in their team. But
I know. What's incredulous to me is the USA fans, a large portion of them at least, saying he doesn't care because he smiled in a bar after a game. Stop it.
Yeah.
You know, the proof is in the pudding. You're right,
That's
he did play very well. I preferred Robinson. We can fight about that off camera. Uruguay come again and again. It's that Adams, like I always watch games, and if I see things that I want to screenshot the sort of players, it's Tyler Adams track and runs in this second half. It's a phenomenal job. They've got the Uruguay centre back marking they've got the USA centre back marking a forward. They got the fullback marking a winger. They bomb these runs in between that could be incredibly dangerous, and Tyler Adams is step for step repeatedly. Great work, and not easy work to do, by the way. Big moment in Florida. Yes, this game's in Kansas City. Bolivia goal.
And they were so far ahead in their time was. They were like 8 minutes ahead of second
that was
kickoff,
weird,
which
right?
made it
they
weird.
Always talk about coordinated kickoff times. That was a bit strange. Very, very on brand, though, for this Copa America. Former MLS player Miranda, and as it stands, the USA are going through. People know. There's a clumsy foul on Reina by the right back, who was very impressive, by the way, Nandez. There's USA chants in the crowd. Berhalter's 1-1, visibly excited about it. This all lasts about 30 seconds. That is so. Berhalter was ruthlessly battered for this by Herculez Gomez. I can see why. To me, it's the issue that you're defending a set player. I think he was about to change the game plan because this game had got well out of hand since the second half kicked off, and he wanted to sit in a bit more. But yeah, it's about a minute later, less than a minute later, and goal. Free kick comes in. Ronald Araujo might be man of the match for me. He heads it. Turner saves. Rebounds poked in by the central defensive partner, Oliveira. So there's one for the defensive aficionados. A assist and a goal by the centre-back pairing. So you're a keeping expert. I've heard that it's a keeping error. I think that's very harsh. Before we talk about whether it was offside, was it an error by Turner?
No, and it's ridiculous to think that.
Right?
You see this stuff here from like, oh, he knocked the ball directly to the guy sitting in there. Well, first off, how is that secondary player coming in unmarked? And second off, what do you want the man to do with a point blank redirected header? That's a strong header. That's down and to a side. You have to get hands on it. There is 0% chance that you're going to catch that ball, just because the whole point about catching is you're attacking the ball. Everyone thinks that you're just reacting and it sticks to your hands. No, you have to move and go grab that ball. With a reaction save like this, you're just trying to push it away. And yeah, it would have been preferable if he could have somehow put that more laterally on that. But again, that's very fine margins to this. He made the save. And for me, the biggest thing is, do you save and knock it directly back in the direction that it came from? That's an error. That would be, oh, you've made the save, but you couldn't redirect it from the player who sent that ball to you, which means it would be a good tap in. No, there was just two wide open players standing directly in front of him, and barring, a miracle, otherworldly level type of reaction to somehow twist his hand to force that ball to spin awkwardly away from goal, it's not going anywhere but in that direction. And they did a good job to capitalize on it.
Yeah, I think it's a tough catch.
No chance.
100%. So they do the lines for offside. I don't trust the lines. I remember during COVID, they zoomed out on a Liverpool offside line, and the line was straight, but the goal line and the 18, they weren't parallel. and the goal line and the halfway line, they weren't parallel, and they were
Yeah.
explaining it's the curve of the camera lens.
Correct.
So, like, what are we looking at? The lines for TV purposes. It looked offside to me. I don't know. What do you think?
It was extremely close, and that looked to me like he was dead even. You know, if it was a millimeter offside, the way that without having that semi-automated offside that we've seen, where you've literally got information being relayed from the touch of the ball and being able to go in on a almost microscopic level. There's no chance with a camera angle that's not perfectly even with the line. People go, why wasn't the camera angle even? Because the camera angle is designed there to cover the final third. It would be incredibly lucky if the offside just happened to be right on the edge of the area.
Yeah, it's not like the Wimbledon Hawkeye, where it's designed for rules. It's designed for TV entertainment, and we're using it for rules, right?
Yeah. For me, it's close enough that you go, I'd be okay with that going either way. If he's leaning slightly beyond and it's an inch offside, okay, if you're sure about that. But they clearly weren't sure about that, and they didn't raise their flag on the field level. So it's sort of that thing of, you go back to the old NFL style rule. There's not enough evidence to overturn. You got to stick with what was originally called, and I thought that was the correct call. Disappointing because it was so close and it looks so bad when you've got another player who is offside at the time. But hey,
you've got examples of people's fingers being offside, people's toes being offside. For me, if any part of his body's onside, play on, and just change the dynamic of how defenders defend.
That's an interesting one.
Stop playing for offside.
Yeah, my thing is, if you're a forward, stop always trying to be directly even with the last defender. Give him a 6-inch buffer. It's not going to make a difference. They're facing the other way, or they're jockeying, or they're turned sideways. The advantage is for you to be running in a straight line. Why make it so that you're possibly offside? Seems foolish and dumb, and just a bad way of approaching how forwards and strikers get trained ultimately. But these weren't forwards and strikers, so maybe that gives them an out.
Yeah, makes sense. So we got matching subs, levels of difference in quality. I don't dislike Josh Sargent in any way. He's a good player, but Musa off and Sargent on, while Vina's off and Jimenez is on. Jimenez, 86 caps, Europa League champion, 2-time Champions League finalist, played on what at the time was one of the best defensive teams in the world for Simeone and Madrid. I mean, to bring this on with 18 minutes left, defending a lead, had shades of Mariano Rivera coming out to Sandman at Yankee Stadium. It was what an elite sub to defend a 1-0 lead. That said, Jimenez is not the biggest problem for the USA now because Panama have scored again. They're up 2-1, pretty much set in stone now, that they've just brought on a one-time world-level defender. Maybe he's declined a bit, and we need 2 goals in 15 minutes.
Yeah, and this was where sort of the belief was gone for me, because I had faith through most of this game that the USA would score a goal. As this game progressed in the second half, I had almost no belief that the USA would score 2 goals. But that's the roll of the dice that you have to take. Throw on Josh Sargent, who's done decently for Norwich City. Not a prolific goal scorer, but somebody who can certainly strike the ball. And now it becomes very clear that you're just sort of hoping to get a player in an area with the ball at his feet to take a strike at goal. And you just try to put enough of those players on there that you hope each of those opportunities you create goes in. That's really all you can do at that point.
Yeah. And referee, again, another strike against him. Is a terrible tackle on Pulisic by De La Cruz. It should be a yellow. It isn't. We have the keeper, Rocher. He comes all the way out to the side of his 18. He spills the ball. It works.
Most electric moment of the entire second half is, here you go. Here's the opportunity. McKennie charging onto a loose ball. I thought this one was going to go in.
But here's the telling thing. It takes 2 passes to find Pulisic, and then there's 2 guys there to block his shot.
And another 2 on the line.
Yeah, we're out in all out, like some of the best defending you could ever wish to see right now. Like, what an example in how to close a game out.
That's such a tough situation that almost any team would break down on. Your keeper has come a long way from his goal. He's lost the ball. He's now completely out of the play. There's no chance he's going to get back in between the sticks to deal with the ball before a shot ultimately comes in. And the fact that Uruguay immediately recognized this, and they don't do the safe thing, which so many teams do that I hate, which is you try to put somebody on the goal line like they're going to stab out a leg and block it or head this off the line. No, the best thing to do is get directly in front of the ball, go
Right
close it down and give them no space. And they did that perfectly.
Now, here is to me the art of defending and why I believe there's no such thing as parking the bus. Uruguay don't have the ball. Uruguay are 20 yards from their own goal. Uruguay's on the front foot here. Mentally, they seem like they're the aggressive team attacking, and USA are just kind of probing and jabbing for an opening. Like, it is an art, and it is a very undervalued part of the game. And I wouldn't be shocked if Uruguay win this tournament, to be quite honest with you.
No, they got as good a chance as anybody.
Matching subs again off the bench is kind of a fun dynamic to me. USA bring off a defender for an attacker, and Uruguay bring off an attacker for a defender. Scally off, and who I like, Hadji Wright. He comes on. I'm a Middlesbrough fan, watch a lot of Championship. Thought he played on a Coventry team I actually thought was going to be in the playoff mix. De La Cruz off, and Betancourt, the good ball-winning midfielder, on. Panama score a goal. I don't even know if that makes a difference. I think we've all well accepted that we need 2 goals now. All that means is we still need 2 goals. Sargent does make an impact. He wins a corner. Uruguay head the ball clear twice. Wright attacks inside the box, and again, clips for young defenders in the 83rd minute. Ugarte, perfect timing. Ball goes past him, takes a step. Wright runs back into his box. This is textbook 1v1 using your body. It's not close to a foul. These guys are masters in defending their own box. Masters. Pulisic clattered by Ugarte.
They were a little bit physical with him late on, just going, all right, we're just going to shut this down and make you hurt. And I didn't like to see that style of game, but it's not unexpected from the way Uruguay has their international reputation built.
Yeah, I don't like it or not like it. You'll just never win trophies without beating a team that does it. Never. Pulisic gets the ball back. Again, there's not one guy there to block a defender. There's 2. One deflects it, and then one stops it. This is winning. This is backbone. This is really impressive stuff. Then we got Reem off and Malik Tillman on as Berhalter pretty much empties the clip in terms of attacking subs he could possibly throw on. Meanwhile, Uruguay are just bringing some absolute guns off the bench here. They bring on just casually sub on a couple of Champions League winners in Luis Suarez and Caceres. What depth? Like these are elite level players that are coming here off the bench.
Very nice to have available for sure. The veteran knowledge to how to close games out.
Yeah, and just the other under discussed volume of that. What's a training session like? When your backup team, your scout team, you guys you're going up against the sharp and sword, they're Champions League winners, man. I mean, and then you got Bielsa screaming and shouting from his bucket. The intensity and energy that these guys bring, it is designed, and it is a force, and it is going to be very, very tough to put them out the tournament. They got Brazil in the next round. I don't think Brazil puts this team out. I don't. Turner with a save from Palestri as we head into injury time now, and we are chasing a miracle. Pulisic shot. He's got Betancourt closing from behind. He's got Jimenez closing from in front. There's a second shot blocked. These guys descend on the ball in groups of 2, 3, and 4. Tillman takes a shot where Jimenez is sprinting and sliding at him to make the block, and then he's almost violently waving his arms to get the offside line up. So I mean, this is just I've clipped up like 10 to 15 clips of Uruguay defending. There's one more chance, and then that's it, Caleb.
And such a good chance it is. You just know that you need to get a ball into the danger area and hope for a scoring opportunity. And for me, the ball that comes in to Hadji Wright in the 18, this is where I think Uruguay makes one mistake, because like they've been doing, like the ball in after the keeper spill that found its way to Pulisic, you've got both Uruguayan defenders in that area, both come immediately to the ball. But the difference here, who's standing 5 yards to the right, wide open as can be? The man who had a chance at redemption, Ricardo Pepi, is right there for the taking. All Wright has to do is square that ball over, and Pepi just has to slot it past the keeper. Now, whether or not he would have scored that chance after all the other misses he had in the first 2 games of the tournament is perhaps in some doubt. But just the fact that that they didn't pick out that pass to give that scoring opportunity, I don't think even if he does score that the game ends up anything different than just 1-1 and you're out the tournament, as opposed to 1-0 and you're out the tournament. But it was just so frustrating to watch. And on the right side of things, I can't discredit him for wanting to take that shot. You're brought in there probably with a word in your ear from Berhalter just saying, make an impact, get a chance to shoot and put the ball on target. And he tries to hit it hard and low towards the corner, but the Uruguayans are there to intervene, and they get enough on it that one deflects back to be easily dealt with. And that felt like the end of the game. The deflation was out there just going, it's not going to happen.
All right, so it's the end of the game, and what else is at the end of? Because I have 4 topics here for you as a USA fan.
All right, hit me with them.
The much over-discussed Golden Generation tag, which Kevin De Bruyne doesn't like. We learned in press conferences at Euro. Gregg Berhalter, World Cup, and what now? So,
yeah.
Golden Generation.
It's not a Golden Generation.
Yeah, my thoughts, Golden Generation is a title that should be given in hindsight. It's based on achievements, not what you think somebody could do. It is based on results, not style of play. It is not even remotely in a discussion that this group right now is a top 3 team in US history. Could they be? Maybe. Let it happen. Stop prematurely christening people something they're not.
I kind of like, actually, how groups of really good players for international squads become golden generations. England's, of course, the 2006 World Cup. You just look at all the talent on the roster. So I like that idea of just, I don't hate the title being bestowed without the achievements, because, of course, some of them aren't going to live up to expectations. But for me, the U.S. isn't even in this point. The U.S. is sort of just this current squad being given it because, hey, look, we've got guys who are currently starting for top level teams in Europe, and we haven't always had that. It's a little bit of overreaction. They're very young. There's so many of these players that are just starting out, or they're so inconsistent season to season. Looking at you, Gio Reyna, that maybe the next cycle, maybe by 2026, this is talked about with fairness of being the quote unquote golden generation for the US, but for me, they're not there yet at this point. So there's still other teams. That 2002 squad, I would say, were more closely to a golden generation of young talent that had made an impact than the squad were, because of the plaudits that Beasley and Donovan had won at the international stage at the Under-17 World Cup. So,
and by the way, Landon Donovan, young player of the tournament at the World Cup.
That's right. That is
Can't
correct.
even imagine if Pulisic won that, where the hype would go.
Mm.
Like the win over Portugal, Luis Figo, Portugal. Like, these are things that just haven't been emulated, Caleb. They just
not. And very much so has been the talk about the inability to beat teams that are in the top 15 in the world, which is a little bit of an arbitrary number, but I get the statistic, which is just, aside from Mexico, this current USA group has not been able to earn victories against the best teams in the world. And that's a fair criticism.
And you look at Richards, he's on and off the bench for Palace. Fair enough, it's impressive.
Yeah.
Like Jeff Cameron's in the Premier League for how long? He wasn't on much. Just this automatic assumption that the next new thing is better is a phenomenon that's leading us. England are doing the same thing. I've heard it forever how England have got better. Like, have they? Because 3 of England's back 4 used to be Ashley Cole, John Terry, and Rio Ferdinand. This is better.
I don't know about that.
Declan Rice and Conor Gallagher or Kobe Manu. That's better than Gerrard and Lampard. Come on, man! You got it's just thrown around like candy. The golden generation thing.
A little bit. And probably could have talked about this a little bit earlier. Some of this has to do with the growth and development of the average USA men's national team supporter. The fans have now gotten to the point where a lot of them, like me, who grew up and took to soccer and started following soccer, and now they're older and a little bit more mature, and it almost feels like the palates are more refined, that we have this oh, we're more fanciful now. That yes, we look at players with a little bit renewed interest because we follow their club exploits more closely and things like that. But you're right. We're so much overlooking the fact that there's always been high level European club performers on every U.S. national team going back to the '90s. For heaven's sakes, it's just sort of more the awareness about it and the recency bias that yes, some guys who are getting time off the bench or they're starting half the games for a top 5 league club are looked at a little bit more closely than some of the guys who've come through. Tim Howard, Jeff Cameron, guys that were in the Premier League for almost a decade doing their thing and have been very good high level performers. We're going to have to see this same USA squad get themselves a signature moment if they want to join that type of discussion.
Matt Turner, good goalkeeper.
He's very good goalkeeper.
Never going to reach Tim Howard levels.
Yeah, I mean, is just the fact that Tim Howard did it for so long and with so much confidence in the backside leads me to believe that no. But on his day, I don't think Matt Turner is that much worse for this USA squad. He makes some big saves. He hasn't made any howling errors that I look at him and go, I don't know. There's a goalkeeping controversy. I think he has pretty much nailed this thing down for at least the next 4 years, unless something really crazy happens.
Here is, to me, a footprint Howard left. He was voted by the players in the Premier League as the best goalkeeper in the league.
Yeah.
It's just not happening for Matt Turner. This is a levels thing. Like, he's a good goalkeeper. But again, that's why I question this golden generation. Gregg Berhalter. Personal opinion, I was surprised he kept his job. To leave him 18 months in limbo and bring him back, I think was always going to leave him in a vulnerable position in the locker room, which is why I think he tries so hard and sometimes it seems so desperately to be liked by the players. You got the whole Gio Reyna thing that he's trying to claw his way back from. So when you see what I think is a lack of discipline and almost an obsession with being liked, I think it's a result of those two things. I think it's getting stale. If I was the USA board, I would change it. I'd shake his hand. He hasn't done a bad job, but I would find someone fresh. I think it's naive to just assume that Klopp wants to come here. But obviously someone like Jurgen Klopp would be in a different universe.
And this for me, Stu, and my apologies, was this the last of the points that you wanted to throw at me here, or did you have one more?
I got two more. But,
you got two more. All right, we'll circle back to Berhalter at the end here because I do have my final question I wanna give you on that. So I'll put a pin in it in my my thoughts of Berhalter, but all of that criticism that you're saying is just. It's not overly critical or saying that or ignoring this guy's past results. There is certainly a case to be there to be made that he's not the right man for the job.
Now, here's what they need to do that they failed miserably at. They need to be decisive. They took 18 months last time. You got 2 years till a World Cup at home. Whatever decision you make it now. The latest
report seems to be it's going to be in the next couple of days that we're going to find out the answer to that.
But if you keep him now and sack him in a year, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that'd be a bad
decision. Make it quick and live with it until after the World Cup.
Next thing from you, Stu, what do you got for me?
World Cup. I would have the USA, obviously the draws and one-off games. Last 8 will be a decent, not remarkable performance. Semi-finals would be a phenomenal performance.
I think last 8 is probably the more realistic expectation. Just there's a lot of question marks for me about having so many more teams in the World Cup, the extra game, round of 32 versus a round of 16. What's that going to look like? And for me, it leads too many opportunities for an inconsistent performance that knocks you out. And I think that's what the USA is most guilty of right now. So the more games, the more I think is an opportunity for the USA to lay an egg and have a bad performance in a critical moment. But they've got 2 years to try to change that. And maybe as this young group of players continues to mature and develop, maybe those bad habits go away.
And final question, and I'm going to give you the floor, and you can round up with your Berhalter thoughts too.
All right.
What next? What now?
Yeah, this is going to be a critical period because it's not like the USA has to worry about qualification or anything like that. Sometimes I think that messes up the hosts a little bit when you don't have those high level games. You'll look at a Gold Cup next summer, and maybe that's sort of your final preparation. But the one thing the USA has is a lot of money in the Confederation to go around and play whoever the heck they want, wherever the heck they want. There will be no shortage of opportunities for high level opposition to come in and play friendly matches. So it's going to be, can you get the most out of those when there's not a tournament or silverware or something like that on the line? And I certainly think this USA team will be able to adapt to that and know what kind of opportunity sits in front of them. You look at what the 1994 World Cup did for the USA. It was an amazing stepping stone into launching a league and creating a lot of goodwill and popularity around soccer that has led us to this moment. So 2026 World Cup, it's going to be that type of opportunity. You cannot afford to let that pass you by without making an impact. So this is probably the most vital 2-year stretch that the U.S. men's national team organization has had since their sort of lackluster performance getting bounced from World Cup 90. They've got to make the right decisions, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on, because if they get this wrong, it's not just a head coach that you're talking about going, you're talking about cleaning house of the entire organization, top to bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So last thing for me, Stu, we like fun questions here. We've gone for a long time on our podcast, so we'll keep this one short. If the U.S. men's national team moves on from Gregg Berhalter, who is your manager of choice to bring in right now? I'll give you my thought after yours.
Of choice, Klopp? Do I think Klopp would take the job? No. I think you might find yourselves with Gareth Southgate.
Interesting. I had not thought about that, but could make sense. And I think Gareth Southgate has done a tremendous job and has gotten way too much criticism compared to his resume and how he's done. So I think I would be happy with that. I agree with you. I don't think Klopp would want to come in and do it. But he is the type of guy that you'd love, that passion, right? To be a uniting force and just set this team up for what could be an amazing 2-year run. Boy, would he get some people excited and have control of that dressing room.
I'd enjoy Klopp with England, but I don't think that's happening either.
No, I think he's
like a technical director role with a club.
Yeah, I think that's what he'll do. But for me, controversial choice. If they decide to move on from Berhalter, you know who I want in the driver's seat, Stu? Who I think the U.S. has a realistic opportunity to hire and would say yes immediately. Bruce Arena for the third time. Let's go. The man that has brought them to their best ever finish in a modern format World Cup 2002. So many people gave him the blame for that failure to qualify for the World Cup in 2018, which was really Jurgen Klinsmann's fault, not Bruce Arena coming in the last second, having to pick up the pieces of a team that was so far behind the 8-ball. It would have made him legendary had he gotten that team into the World Cup. So one bad loss against Trinidad and Tobago on the road in CONCACAF qualifying does not, to me, say that he's a bad coach. And the job that he did in MLS after that, yes, there's a little bit of controversy. We still don't know what happened to force him out of his role with the New England Revolution after he won a supporter shield with that club. We haven't gotten the full story about what happened there. So obviously, if there's more that came to light that made that situation look really atrocious, then yeah, you don't do that. But for a guy who would say yes immediately to the job, and a guy who has proven that he is capable of getting it done, I would love to see him take the U.S. on another run and try to best his own best results of getting them to a semifinal.
Caleb, I have 2 thoughts on that.
Give it to me.
depends on who he is. We see athletes and coaches as fixed when we know that life goes through seasons.
Oh, yeah.
And a young, hungry, motivated, achieved nothing yet on the great world scale Bruce Arena was, to me, underrated. Like, again, golden generation, there's the coach of your golden generation. Like, yep. Magnificent, worked his way up through the college game. Everything's right about it. That second stint, some of the interviews, some of the things I've heard actually from some people on the inside is that success could be in the bank now when there's maybe a more jaded, more know-it-all, less passionate, less able to connect version of Bruce Arena the second time around. So, yes, it was the same man, but not really. Could that have happened? Could he realize that? Could he come back a wiser man? Yes, because what is very underrated nowadays is experience. Yep. All the fans would rather have the next new exciting thing that's never failed. But the fact is, the guy that's failed and the guy that's succeeded and the guy that's been there and done it is actually the guy that you want when the whistle blows and the pressure. It's not fancy for press conferences. It's not great for commercial revenue generating to go back where you came from. But could he have a final song that's better than we've ever seen? Yeah. Could he be a wiser, different version? Yes. Could his knowledge of the game be a decade past when he succeeded in the first place? Yes. But lots of people I've seen in the coaching industry and in life in general have a hard time staying enthusiastic and hungry and keeping the pressure on themselves to perform when they've got so much success in the bank that at any moment they can just fall back on it.
That's true. And he definitely did come in for some criticism from his players, stepping in to a qualifying campaign that's already underway with a group of players that you didn't necessarily pick, I think is always a tough thing. For me, though, the one thing about it that I like is that for some people, the USA job is a money grab, or it's a chance to sort of come in and just show, oh, let me show you the right way to do this, you poor, confused Americans. For me, Bruce Arena would be passionate about getting this result because he wants this organization to succeed. This is not a stepping stone. It's never been his job. He's never had any desire to go over there and leave the U.S. behind because he's above it and too good for it. So I think if you gave him the reins and let him put his stamp on this team for 2 years, wouldn't be a bad decision. But we're going to have to find out if they decide to let Berhalter go in the next few days anyway.
So that's an interesting point there, Caleb, because we've had this obsession with Europe, and anyone who says Europe is a higher level doesn't know what they're talking about, because you're talking about 80 teams like they're one level. But you finally got it. You've got all your players. There's no MLS players in the starting lineup. That's what you wanted. You got this style of play. It's what you wanted. You got this narrative that you're all above the MLS, only for Jesse Marsh in Canada to show you that maybe that's not that big a deal like you thought all along. And maybe there's something being lost in this pursuit outside of your own identity.
That has been such a weird thing about this, is sort of that believing that Europe is the end all be all, and that I don't think there's been any doubt about the fact that you've seen some better development being in that crucible. That's sort of been the talk all along, is you want them to go play at the highest level, and that's going to forge you some very good players. You've got them now, but of course, international tournament football is a lot different than club level over the course of a 38, 45 game season. Now it's, can you have a driven vision to get something done in a 3 to 7 game span? So I'm very excited to see what this U.S. men's national team is going to look like going forward, and I just am hoping and keeping everything crossed that they are going to be able to take advantage of this opportunity. Please let this be the USA's moment to not just show that they're capable of competing on the world stage, but to actually get results.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Caleb. Thank you.
It's been a lot of fun.
Short but enjoyable podcast series.
I just wish it had been longer, Stu, but I'm sure we'll talk again soon.